What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to the Locks DFS College Football Breakdown video. I am your host, Christian Hardy. I am at ByHardy on Twitter and ByHardy on DraftKings, and we're going to be going through this Week 12 college football slate. We have a nice DraftKings slate on tap. Lots of 60-team totals, lots of interesting plays to get to. Before I get into it, don't forget that if you are watching this video, I know I haven't had them out the last 2 weeks. I'll get to that in a second. But if you're watching this, please hit the subscribe button. Get these videos in your inbox. We also, of course, if you're not familiar with the channel, do NFL and NBA previews. I know some of you guys who are doing college football may be new to the channel because there's not a lot of content out there. So please hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. Really appreciate it. And then if you comment with your favorite cash play of the week, you will have a chance to win a free season pass from locksdfs.com. We go through our comments every week, and we pick one on the Thursday Night Football video. So if you guys do that, that would really help us out a lot. We really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks, so the first week I missed, it was like NBA was really just overwhelming me. And then I had to do football, or actual football, like NFL, do research for that video, and just didn't have the time that week, which I've started to get more into a schedule now with NBA. And then last week I did actually record a video real late at night. It was actually not my best of videos, but I wanted to get one out. Tried uploading it the next morning, Friday morning, and it just didn't upload. So that's why you guys didn't get a video last week. So sorry about that, but let's go ahead and get into this slate ahead. We'll talk about a few quarterbacks, a few running backs, and a few of my favorite wide receivers. So pretty much I'm going to talk about 3 quarterbacks in different price ranges and guys I'm considering. So obviously Anthony Gordon is a decent play. I mean, Washington State is going to air out the ball. He's got a high floor, but the price is very high, and he doesn't have a super high ceiling because he's just going to pass. Trevor Lawrence has been hitting a ceiling, but man, I'm worried about playing these Clemson guys for only 3 quarters. The guy I think I'm interested in at the top here is Brock Purdy at 8.2K. Iowa State team total at 36.5. Vegas expecting to score a lot of points in this game. 7-point favorite at Texas against Texas at home. We'd expect Iowa State to air it out a decent amount just because Texas is so bad. Their secondary is so bad, and they're giving up over almost 300 yards a game through the air. 8.3 yards per attempt, which is 108th out of 130 college football teams. Purdy's a pretty solid quarterback. He also can occasionally add some rushing upside. He's done a little bit less of that since Breece Hall has emerged. But he can typically add rushing upside, and it always gives him a chance to score a touchdown in the red zone. So definitely some upside here, and I think he can get you 300 passing yards pretty certainly. Outside of that, I'm probably just going to be looking to cheap quarterbacks. We're going to get to a free square in a second, but in the mid-range, someone that I think could end up actually being my quarterback one this week because I'm not in love with any of the expensive quarterbacks. It's going to be Max Duggan. I'm going to go with Max Duggan here. Obviously, Duggan, we talked about him before, runs the RPO, which you love to see. So we have a rushing floor. We have passing upside. Texas Tech, 128th in yards per attempt allowed through the air. Obviously, they're playing at home, and their defense can usually play a little better at home. But I do expect TCU to just control this game. Duggan should do plenty of rushing, as you can see. Since he's been starting 10, 13, 13, 16, 14. Came into came into college football as a dual threat quarterback. Ran the option in college a decent amount and can also scramble when he's just dropping back in general. He just makes a lot of sense with a 29.5 team total and so much of the offense flowing straight through Duggan. I think his price is still just way too cheap, and he's going to be someone that I'm definitely considering in cash games this week. And then finally, you have basically just a free square that I think you should be playing in all formats if we're being honest. Davis Mills. This is going to be assuming that KJ Costello is going to be out. He is doubtful to play right now. So I'm not obviously doubtful. I'm not expecting him to play. It'd be a surprise to see him play. If he doesn't play, you're going to have to make some pivots on the afternoon slate, which there are plenty of big afternoon games, and I will have plenty of afternoon exposure in my roster. So if that does happen, we'll have to make some changes. But I'm fully expecting Mills to play this game. He's preparing as a starter for this week. So Washington State, we know how bad their defense is. 107th in yards per attempt allowed. They are bottom 30 in defensive FEI. Shout out Football Outsiders. He's just sub 5. He's sub 5K. Like even in GPPs, when you get a quarterback for sub 5K, what he can do to the rest of your roster is so significant that he's basically a lock. And besides that, he has a little bit of rushing upside, as you can see. Not really. He is a pro style quarterback. But he can get you a little bit. He can get you a little bit of rushing. And this is pretty much the best matchup that you can get, especially in a Power 5 conference against Washington State. Not only because their defense is terrible, but also because Mike Leach, Anthony Gordon going to air the ball a ton. They're going to force Stanford to probably throw the ball a decent amount here for the most part. And I'm not expecting Washington State to have any trouble throwing the ball against Stanford. So, yeah, I mean, Mills is pretty much just a lock. I shouldn't have to tell you that. If you saw his price, saw his starting against Washington State, and you watch college football, you should know that. Chuba Hubbard, going over to running backs now, is pretty much a also straight lock this week. You can make an argument for Kenneth Gainwell, I think, in a very high total, a game that I'm going to want exposure to. But Hubbard is a better play, especially with Patrick Taylor potentially coming back this week and will take volume from Gainwell. If Taylor isn't out, I do think you can make a legit case for Gainwell over Hubbard. And he'll be a very, very good play. Obviously, Gainwell's a very talented running back. But if Taylor's back, Gainwell's role just however many carries Taylor takes is going to be too many at this price, $8,400. Meanwhile, with Hubbard, obviously he's competing with Spencer Sanders, who took a lot of the he passed for 2 touchdowns last week, or in the last game. It wasn't last week, 2 weeks ago. Pass for 2 touchdowns, which definitely hurt Hubbard. Hubbard ended up getting there on 2 longer runs, which is just something he does. He's so quick, can break tackles at the line, and then get you with the burst after that. Awesome volume. KU giving up over 5 yards per attempt, which is pretty much the best volume you can get on the slate. And he's a 17-point favorite with a big 42.25 team total. Oklahoma State has put up 40 points. When Oklahoma State has put up 40 points this year, which has done it 3 times. One was a blowout against McNeese State where they benched the starters early in the season. Another one was a 26 carry, 221, 3 touchdown game against Oregon State. Another one was a 32 carry, 235 yard, 3 touchdown game against Tulsa. Hubbard's going to get the ball at least 25 times in this game. I think almost guaranteed. Even though Sanders did a little bit more running with Tylan Wallace out. I don't think it's going to, generally, I don't think it's going to affect Hubbard. And obviously, a matchup against Kansas is pretty much the best spot you can ask for Hubbard in the Big 12. So he's basically locked for me at that price. Most of these guys are GBP plays, Borgie especially in a Washington State stack. He's someone that if I had the salary, I would be interested in cash, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get there. Breece Hall, definitely someone in the mid-range I'm interested in. He has emerged as a very, very talented running back out of Iowa State. So we've already talked about how bad the Texas secondary is, but their rush defense is bottom half as well. I believe they're allowing like 4.8 yards per carry or something like that. And Hall, not only does he have a role in the rushing game, but he's caught 3-6-4 passes over his last 3 games, which is just awesome to see. You're getting a discount on a true number 1 running back with amazing volume here in Hall on a home 7-point favorite. He makes a ton of sense again because he's not priced up to where it should be. You're getting a discount. You know, these guys are the guys who are carrying the ball. Like workhorses. I guess Stevie Scott is too, but he's playing Penn State, so not really in play. No one below Hall, I think I can say this with certainty, maybe Cameron Scarlett down here, has a bigger share of his team's rushing work. Not even Scarlett, actually. Not even Scarlett. So, yeah, I mean, like, that's just what it is. It's based on volume. It's the matchup is solid. He's a home favorite. He has a passing role. He makes a ton of sense as the running back 2 behind Hubbard in cash games. I don't mind Najee Harris right below him. You're not going to get the same volume out of Najee that you're going to get out of Hall. In most cases, obviously there are some outcomes where that could happen. But if we see Tua miss this game, then I think that the Crimson Tide could turn to the ground game a decent amount, turn to Harris a decent amount. Mississippi State is giving up 4.8 yards per carry this year, and if Bama's going to decide to run the ball down Mississippi State's throat, which they are like 18-point favorites, so they could do anyway, even if Tua is active, Harris should be a pretty big part of that. We've seen him get 20 carries this year already, and we could see a score like this, 35-13, something like that. Especially without Tua, that would not be surprising at all, something like that. I think Harris makes a lot of sense in cash games as well, but I do definitely prefer Hall if you're only going to be able to get to one of those 6K guys. And then there are a few cheaper options. You got to keep an eye on the Texas Tech situation. They have a very, very cheap running back in Tashawn Henry, who could be like the only guy who's like played a role in the offense might be active. You just have to keep an eye on that. And then Mulbakar is going to redshirt, and Patrick Carr is he was out last week. We don't know if he's going to play this week yet. They say out on DraftKings, but that's not correct. So if we see both of those cars out for Houston, they are big dogs, But Kyle Porter should see a decent amount of carries here at 5,700. Those are pretty much the guys I'd consider for a little bit cheaper, under the 6K range. And there are more in the article, of course, if you check it out at locksdfs.com. Going over to wide receivers now, where we are going to finally talk a little bit more about Memphis and Houston here shortly, which is the highest total on the slate at 69. But before we do that, let's talk about a little bit more about this Washington State passing offense, where I think I'm going to be my favorite wide receiver on the slate. The first one in my cash builds is Brandon Arconado. Leads the team in targets with 9 targets, 15 targets, 16 targets. He's returning from injury. Washington State, of course, loves to pass the ball, and Stanford has a terrible defense. So you're going to want exposure to this passing game somehow. Arconado, in terms of volume, is just the best way to do it, especially considering that he is priced as a second wide receiver. I mean, Winston does have a lot of touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, a lot of them being deep touchdowns this year. But Arconado actually leads the team in red zone targets this year. Despite missing multiple games, he leads the team in red zone targets. So I think he's a pretty smash play here at this price. You could definitely make a case for let's talk about it next. Texas wide receivers are a little bit interesting because we could see Colin Johnson. There's reports that he will travel, but we are not sure if he's going to play. This is another late game, so that makes it a little bit more complicated here because I'm expecting him to be a game time decision for this game. Duvernay is going to be right up there with Arconado in terms of volume, especially if we see Colin Johnson sit out. Pretty much going to see 12, 13 targets, somewhere in that range. Maybe possibly more if we see Colin Johnson sit out. This is not a great matchup, but to see that volume at under 7K is definitely something that's very interesting. We've seen with Colin Johnson, he was out. I believe Colin Johnson was out these weeks here. So, we saw one big game there. It is definitely a tougher matchup against Iowa State, who is probably the second best passing defense, maybe the third best passing defense in the Big 12. And Texas going on the road here. So it's definitely a negative there, but this is supposed to be a positive game script for the Texas passing offense. I do trust Sam Ehlinger in terms of being a college football quarterback. That helps. I love to see that on my wide receivers. So he makes some sense. And then obviously if Colin Johnson is out, well, Colin Johnson, if he plays and we know he's healthy, he's not too bad at that price, for one. And for two, if we do see Johnson out, Brendan Eagles here at 5.1K is definitely a discount on the number 2 Texas wide receiver. At 5,100, he should see probably 7, 8, 9 targets if we see Johnson out here. Like I said, not a great matchup, but still, you get a discount on a wide receiver too here in the Texas wide receiver. That makes a lot of sense. Another guy that I love for cash games, love for GBPs, and definitely my favorite way to get exposure to this giant 69 team total, nice, in Memphis and Houston, is DeMonte Coxey. There are definitely some value options in this game, but Coxey is definitely the guy that, well, Gainwell, of course, would be the top pay-up option if we see Taylor out. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to afford him. I'm not playing him over Chuba, so, not sure how much exposure I'll get to him, but Coxey's the next guy. I mean, and he's a virtual lock in cash games. 15 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 11 targets over his last 4 games. Expecting this game completely to shoot out, similar to his SMU game in some extent. Maybe not that much. SMU does run a pretty fast up in pace. And Houston's pass defense is just terrible. They're bottom 30 in college football. And Memphis and Brady White should have no problems moving the ball against them. If you're trying to run it back, look to potentially Marquez Stevenson. Did I pass him? Here he is, 5,600. There's a lot of receivers in this 5,600 range. Like you can make a case for DeJounte Jones, Colin Johnson if he plays. You can really make a case for Andrew Parchment. He's got volume on his side. If you want to look up his targets, he's got about 9 targets a game, and they're going to be in a pass-friendly game. And we can look it up right now. Where Oklahoma State is in terms of, they're 81st in the regards to yards per pass attempt allowed. So, if Kansas can get it going a little bit, it does suck that they're on the road. They usually do play better at home this year. But anyway, Marquez Stevenson is my favorite here at 5.6K. The volume isn't nearly what you're getting out of Coxey, but he does lead the team in red zone targets. He has 8 more than the next guy on the team. 27 more targets than the next guy on the team total. So he's definitely the guy that I want to run it back with. I don't love the price for cash games, but I do think that in a pretty solid matchup against Memphis, in a game that has the highest total on the slate, he makes a little bit of sense if you expect this game to fully shoot out. and you want to stack it up. I mentioned Deshaunte Jones, and we could talk about all of Iowa State in general because all of their receivers are priced up. So Kolar, the tight end, got priced up after scoring 4 touchdowns in 3 weeks. I'm not too interested in him. He is a great red zone target, but I'm just generally don't like the upside that a tight end can give you in college football. Obviously, if he gets in the end zone 2 times, he's going to reach an upside. But generally, you can't break the big plays and that sort of thing. It's just much less likely. So he's not as interesting to me. So going to be looking more to Deshaunte Jones and LaMichael Petaway. So I already talked about how bad the Texas secondary has been, and a lot of that is due to injury, of course, but they have really struggled this year. Jones is a possession guy, doesn't have a big red zone role, only like 5 or 6 red zone targets on the year, but he does lead the team in targets, and he's averaging about 8 targets a game, 7, 11, and 7 over his last 3. And then LaMichael Petaway is also a little bit interesting, but he's been priced around this $5K for a bit now. He actually has the same amount of red zone targets as Kolar does, or maybe he has 1 less than Kolar or 1 more. It's right there. They're around 10 and 11. I don't know which is which, but so yeah, I mean, he definitely has upside. And if you need the 500 down from Jones, I don't mind it at all because Jones is like I said, a possession guy, and he can definitely get there against a Texas team that just has no secondary. To be honest with you. Teams can pass on them at will. So, yeah, I mean, especially if you're not paying up, if you're not going to be pay up for Purdy, I do like the idea of getting exposure to the Iowa State pass offense somehow because I do think that they have a very good game and their team total reflects that. Obviously, there are other spots on this slate to talk about. They are all listed in my article. I go through a game-by-game breakdown. If you're interested, go to locksdfs.com, go to the CFB tab, and it will be there. That pretty much wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. That really helps me out. We really appreciate it. Hit the like button. And then comment with your favorite cash play of the week to be entered into that free giveaway for a season pass from LocksDFS. You can pick an NBA pass, NFL pass, college football pass, up to you. So just comment and you'll be entered to win that. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. And hopefully I'll see you guys back here next week. Good luck this week. Peace.